recording, so.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome.
Apologies, the fire alarm's just gone off, so we're waiting to see if it's a test or not.
Well, once again, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the September meeting of the West Glamorgan Archives Committee held here in Port Talbot Civic Centre. First of all, Gareth, do we have any apologies for absence?
Yeah, I've got a couple of chair from councillors, Elliot King and Robert Smith from Swansea, and Suzanne Ranks from East Port Talbot, and Tracy McNulty and Chris Saunders.
Thank you very much. Are there any disclosures of personal or prejudicial interests, please? No, none?
Andrew? You're on mute.
Beg your pardon. Yes, sorry. I should declare a personal interest because I'm a member of staff.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Our next item is the election of vice chairs for the municipal year 2023-24, which was held over from the last meeting. First of all, East Port Talbot, do we have nominations?
I'd like to support councillor Phillips. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favour?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking on the role.
Thank you.
And secondly, Vice Chair from Swansea Council, please. Are there nominations? Any nominations from the Swansea members?
Well, Chair, I'm happy to continue if people want me.
Somebody will need to nominate you,
Yes.
councillor Smith.
All right. Well, I'll be quiet then.
I'll nominate Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Robert, for continuing in the role. Thank you.
Well, I've got to thank the committee as well because it's a job I enjoy.
Good, thank you. Next item is the minutes of the last meeting. May I please have your approval that they are a correct and accurate record of the meeting?
Happy to approve, Chair.
Thank you very much. All in favour? Thank you. The report of the county archivist is next. Kim, would you please take?
Just matters arising.
Sorry, beg your pardon. Yes, matters arising. Thank you.
I think there's just one matter in the minutes that isn't going to be covered in the main report, which is regarding the Wales Broadcast Archive. I did say it's going to be launched on July the 11th, but it has been delayed till they're now talking about October, and that our Click Corner will open at the same time as the one in the South Wales Miners Library in Swansea University. It's been subject to quite a lot of delay, so I think I've had several false announcements about it opening shortly, but so I cross the fingers that it will open in October, and they are looking to brand the space with National Library logos and branding in the end of September, beginning of October. So sometime during October it will open.
Thank you very much, Kim. Is that the only item? Yeah.
I think so, unless anybody else.
Are there any other matters arising from anyone? No, thank you very much. And Kim, hand you over for your report, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with the use of the service, and the statistics are there for June to August 2023. They are slowly climbing up, but not anywhere near where we were pre-pandemic. However, we just have to keep working on, and hopefully those figures will climb back. As I mentioned on several occasions, the people who are not coming back in large numbers of family historians to use online resources don't particularly want to get down that rabbit hole again, because we've discussed it in several meetings previous to this, and it's basically anecdotally, I would think it's because many people have taken out subscriptions to family history websites during lockdowns, and doing their family history from home rather than using resources elsewhere. One thing I could possibly mention, though, which hopefully will boost our figures, is that we are in the process of recruiting another member of staff, which will take us back to our staff level as we were prior to the pandemic. So we'll have the same number of staff, which means that we can return to our pre-COVID opening hours, because as members will probably know, we've been operating a restricted service both in Swansea and in Nice since the pandemic, and that's been because we've had continuous staff shortage. So permission to recruit has been obtained, and we are recruiting member of staff. So we're looking to restore lunchtime opening in Swansea and go back to 2-day a week opening in Nice as soon as we've got that member of staff in post. And we're also taking out a subscription so that the 1921 census will be available in Nice Mechanics Institute, which hopefully will attract family historians who aren't able to access that resource in Nice Library. Hopefully Claire will be able to, if anybody comes in and says that they'd like to look at the 1921 census, you'll be able to direct them down towards the Mechanics Institute.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
That's good news, Karen. Although you say the numbers are, slowly, nevertheless, they are going up, aren't they?
They are going up.
We
Yeah,
must see
yeah.
the positive.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And we started from if you remember back, we started from a very, very low base when we opened again.
Yes.
So a lot of caution about people using facilities. So,
Yes. So it augurs well.
yes, indeed. It's a glass half full, I should remember. We've had one school visit during the period, but it has been a report June to August. So obviously it cuts right across the school holidays, which cover 2 months ago. So but that is also improving and growing in popularity as well. And it's as reported at the last meeting, the Glamorgan Family History Society Swansea branch now meet in the archives on lunchtime every month. I think it's Tuesday lunchtime, and we're providing advice on resources for them. So that's also growing as well. So yeah, it's slow but steady growth, I would say. Going to perhaps I'm just going to jump to 4 and back to 3 with regard to the report. So going on to section 4 now, because that sort of impinges on the on 3. If I thought about it, I'd probably have relocated, put them the other way around. The move to Astorva, as I think we can now refer to it, former British Home Stores, but the new name has been publicly announced, is going ahead. And we have a 14-point plan relating to the things that we need to do in order to move the collections. Not all of them are relevant to Bitty, in that they're not all things that the the archive service needs to do. So there are some things that Peer Construction needs to do, for example. So it's not necessarily of 14 points. It's not, they're not all actions on the archive service. But what I've listed there are 6 actions that are seen as important to the move of the collections. And they were prepared in consultation with Welsh Government, the Culture Division of Welsh Government, and the outside consultant that we use, the National Conservation Service. And they are listed there in the report, if I can just run through them. So one of the things we need to do is make sure that the 2 strong rooms synchronise with regard to the environment before we transfer the collections. And in order to do that, we need to increase our environmental monitoring of our current strong room in order to make sure that we are able to control it more closely. So at the moment, we know that humidity is likely to be lower in the new facility. So one of the things we need to do is dehumidify the collections, and we're just in the process of purchasing some portable dehumidifiers to carry that out. We are increasing pest monitoring, so we don't want to take any insects or pests from one strong room to the other. We have carried out a preservation assessment survey to assess the condition of the collections, and we were encouraged to do that by Welsh Government, and we got a 90% grant from Welsh Government to undertake that work. So it's cost the archive service very little to do that. It's something that Welsh Government encourages all archives to do, to regularly assess their condition of their collection. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the last time we carried out that exercise was back in 2009. So it was well due. It's about 10 years or more that since we've undertaken that process. So we're waiting for the results of that, and obviously I'll share them with the committee when we have some data from that. Number 4 is another exercise looking at the conservation requirements of the collection, and then we need to concentrate quite. Number 5 I'm looking at now is the improving the packaging for non-traditional format materials. So we have boxed all our paper and parchment material. So we've boxed volumes, and loose items have been boxes. I think most members at this meeting have been around the strong room on a tour now. If not, you're very welcome to come and have a tour around the strong rooms, and you will have seen, no doubt, that we've undertaken a exercise in boxing all volumes, which used to be just loose on the shelves or stacked on the shelves, like as in a library or whatever. So all our volumes are now, or nearly all, are boxed. But we need to do something with regard to the non-traditional format materials. So we have a fair proportion of audio and film material, and we need to. We're getting advice on better ways to store that. And that's one of the great advantages of having a subscription to the National Conservation Service, because we don't have a conservation studio, and we have had a lack of conservation expertise in the service, simply because we don't have access to a conservator. We did have a conservation studio many years ago, and that was cut during. It's more than 20 years ago that we lost that during a series of cuts, and so since we've taken out the National Conservation Service subscription, we've had access to some very good conservation advice from real experts in the field. So they're experts at a national level, which is actually an improvement, because we're getting access to much people who are much more tuned into what is happening in the field of conservation, much more knowledgeable. So I think I can honestly say that the collection is probably better packaged and better advised on than it has been for quite some time through the advice of the NCS, the National Conservation Service, and that's something that we aim to continue with, because it's definitely, it was a recommendation from Welsh Government that we did that, and we haven't regretted that at all. And the NCFs have also been very helpful with the advising on the design of the new strong room. Finally, on this list, number 6, the improving the packaging for photographic material. And one of the things that we have is quite a large collection of glass slides, which in times past was the format for negatives. So if you're familiar with old photographs, very often the negatives were printed onto glass, and we have just under 7,000 glass slides. We're going to get those digitized very shortly, within the next few weeks actually, and we've got a 50% grant from Welsh Government towards that process. So that's been really useful exercise to carry out, and that's something we could have done years and years ago, I suppose, but it was part of the recommendations of the 14-point plan, and it sort of relates to this thing that we're getting much better quality advice than we have. So basically, for many years we had these glass slides and we didn't quite know what to do with them, because we couldn't make them available in the search room because fingerprints will damage the thing, and there's a risk of dropping them, and there's also a health and safety risk of people cutting their fingers on sharp edges and so on. So we couldn't make them publicly available. It was advised that we digitized them. We're just moving on the cusp of moving forward with digital preservation as well. So it ties in very nicely with the idea of having a digital archive repository, which we will aim to have from April next year, if all goes well with regard to the consortium approach. I think talked about that in previous meetings. Nothing's happened in the last couple of months, but we're moving slowly towards it. And so it's quite a positive step. We're digitizing our glass slides, and hopefully they will then be available initially in the search room as digital images, but ultimately they may be published online and so on. So it's all very positive on the conservation front. So I'll take any questions if anybody would like to. Gone over several sections here, so if anybody wants to raise any questions on 1, 2, or 4, you're most welcome.
Any questions? All sounds very positive in terms of the work that's going on.
Thank you. I'll progress or step back to section 3 here, which relates to the move to a storeway. So we have actually passed REBA stage 4. I'm just checking that I didn't say wrongly that we were still on REBA stage 4. So REBA stage 4 is the detailed design, including mechanical and electrical model for the building. However, as particularly the Swansea members will be aware, we've been through a process called value engineering, or VE, which is standard procedure with regard to most big projects. And as we're aware, we're in the inflationary period, particularly with regard to building costs. So this VE process has been applied to the whole of the building, so not just to the archives, but a number of modifications have been made to the design of the archives, which are still under consideration by our overseeing bodies, the National Archives and Welsh Government. Welsh Government has a particular stake here because they're putting 5.5 million into the design, into the building of the the refurbishment of the building as part of the High Street Regeneration Town Centre Regeneration Fund. This is very much a live process at the moment, and there's still a lot of discussion. There was a meeting last week where the proposals were put forward to TNA, the National Archives, and Welsh Government, and there's still questions have been raised about the revisions, and they're still waiting for the answers from the design team. I have to say some of these elements of which are cost cutting are quite reasonable, but some I think are a step too far with regard to the compromise of the archival standards, and are likely to lead to well, overall detriment to the collections, and also may affect our accreditation and also our designation as a place of deposit for public records. Some of the elements, so the one which I think is quite sensible is that the search room has been relocated on the first floor, so that instead of having a dedicated document lift, we'd be using a staff lift at the back of the archive public area. And I'm currently working through that with what the implications are for transferring documents between the search room and strong room, essentially developing a security strategy so that which would make it acceptable to the overseeing bodies, TNA and Welsh Government, as aforementioned. So I think that's quite a sensible thing. It saves 30,000 on the document lift. The implications still working through on paper as to what they might be and what the mitigations and modifications that need to be made to the way that we work. On the second floor, where the archive storage area is, the biggest change, and I think I showed this in a previous meeting, that if members were at that meeting, you'd remember there was a cavity wall or plenum round the archive strong room, which so instead of heating and cooling the actual strong room area, it was the cavity wall which would be cooled to and essentially there was no intervention in the archive strong room area. Now that's been dispensed with, and there's just going to be a single wall, and they've gone for direct intervention in the strong room with air conditioning. I have to say that I'm not very happy with the recommendation here, and our external expert is also not very happy too, from the National Conservation Service. What is proposed is that the air conditioning would only control the temperature and not the humidity. As members are probably aware, without trying to get too technical, both the temperature and humidity are essential to maintaining the standard BS 4971. And what the proposal is that the temperature would be controlled, but the humidity would be, there would be manual intervention to control the humidity. The temperature would just be like the rest of the building, I suppose, being heated and cooled. And the recommended temperature is 20 degrees centigrade, which I think is too high for the collections. It's a different issue. But with regard to if the humidity dropped too low, which is quite possible with that temperature, that the suggested intervention is that fresh air intake is supplied and that fresh air is brought into the strong room area to re-moisturize the atmosphere, which may be fine if it's damp and cold, as it very often is. But during long hot spells in summer, I have issues with that, you know, during those spells when you have hot summer days, dry air, even at night as well, the collections get too dry. You haven't got an easy means of humidifying the collection. It's actually a less sophisticated system than we currently have in Swansea Civic Centre, because our air conditioning system in County Hall Civic Centre has a humidifier and dehumidifier as well as temperature control. So it's not exactly state of the art, as has been mentioned before. It's quite a simple system, and it's one that I'm not particularly happy with as your archivist, and I don't know whether the Welsh Government or TNA will find it acceptable. I could just quote our external advisor on this. It's saying, he says that it's quite likely that the outcome of continuously higher temperatures than are safe in storing archives and the winter heating of adjacent spaces, which means the heating of the other rooms, the library and other rooms below and the adjacent rooms, the likely outcome of all this will be a steady loss of moisture from the collections, which could, in the longer term, cause damage to the collections. The decay will accelerate along with its attendant risk to staff and users when handling documents. If the store temperature trend is higher and the RH trend lower over time than a cooler scenario. So I think it needs some further work, and I do need to raise this concern with members that I hope that we can have a proper outcome from this, that the system is designed which is actually more sophisticated than it's currently proposed. But obviously it's not my decision, it's up to the regulators to decide whether they find it acceptable or not. I think I'll stop for questions or comments about that.
Just on that issue of effectively downgrading the storage facilities, what sort of figure are we talking about? How much does that actually save compared with what was previously proposed? It's obviously doesn't sound acceptable that we could end up in a position of staff having to boil kettles in the strong room to humidify the collection in summer. So I just wondered, you know, what sort of money, what scale of saving would they be making?
I don't know, actually. That's obviously a question for Swansea members to find out, but that's not been mentioned. That it has to be said that the care team worked very closely with our external advisor directly over the summer, and they came up with this. However, our external advisor immediately was published, sort of has sent a note saying more or less washing his hands of it, if that's the right cliche to use, saying, it may be said that I've advised on this, but I'm not very happy with it. So, but yes, it's part of this process of value engineering. It has to be said, it's always been slightly experimental, this design, because it's not traditional for archives to go on the top floor of a multi-use building like this. It's traditionally, and I'm sure you've got this idea in your mind, that archives go in the basement or the ground floor, and what they benefit from then is that there is insulation that's provided by the contact. So basically, the solid concrete block on which the situation provides a strong level of insulation and also environmental stability. If you imagine, I think most lay people can imagine that if you put them 2 floors up in the air, then you get heat in the summer, cold in the winter, you've got the rooms underneath being heated and so on. So they're much more subject to change. And one of the things that the Kier Construction are saying, they want to, one of the things in the BS 4971 standard is that the temperature should not change more than 1 degree during any 24 hours. And they're seeking a derogation from that. So saying we can't meet that. And simply it's that's one way around the standard to say we seek a derogation not to do that, but it does mean that the temperature will fluctuate more than 1 degree during the course of the day.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I just want to say thank you to you, Kim, because it must be very difficult for you in your position, knowing the potential risks in this transfer. Secondly, I think we're all rather concerned about it. And somehow, via the chair, I think we need to pledge our support to you in making sense of all this and making sure that our archives are preserved correctly.
Very helpful. Lyndon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think that it's a bit worrying, to say the least, because in a number of meetings we were assured all would be okay, but it's quite clear that it's not the air conditioning system isn't going to be fit for purpose, and as Kim rightly said, the archive collection has to be kept at a certain temperature, and I think the answer isn't for the committee to be running in with kettles in the year 2023. So I think I think work needs to be done on that to make it as I say, fit for purpose. And we have a duty not to play fast and loose with our archive, and I think work does need to be done on that, because clearly it's not good enough and not what we were assured.
Thank you, Lyndon.
Can I just say that obviously the decision lies with Welsh Government and TNA, and they're still considering the matter. But I did think it was important that members of the committee were aware of where we've got to. Been tossing that backwards and forwards as to whether I should raise the concerns during the course of this meeting. We are in a transitional period because we haven't heard from Welsh Government and TNA as to whether they find it acceptable. I have a feeling they will say it's not acceptable, but I don't know what the outcome of that discussion is. But I do think members should be aware of this process of value engineering. And to be fair, some of the recommendations are quite sensible. I can make sense of the idea of relocating the search room from where it was, so that we use the staff lift, so we can work around that and introduce mitigations. But I do think the issue of the lack of control over the humidity in the archive strong room is something that will come back by Swansea Council in years to come. If it's manual intervention, and indeed if the there are going to be periods like weekends, for example, and other things when there isn't stuff. So you have an alarm going off to say that the strong room is too dry, and it goes off 7 o'clock on a Friday evening. It's going to be 8 o'clock on Monday morning when somebody actually notices that the alarm's gone off. And it's also puts a burden on staff to do something about it, because as we're all aware, some alarms you pay attention to, and other alarms you just walk past and you just say that alarm's been going off for a week and ought to do something about it. So putting the onus on staff to actually do something is probably, I don't think, a sensible way going forward. Has to be said, I shan't be here. I'll be retiring in a matter of months, so I'm leaving a legacy here. I don't want to leave a legacy that people say, well, who on earth agreed to that idea? I don't know whether any further questions or comments need to be raised on this, or should we move on to next?
Sorry, I do apologise, anybody. I thought I turned it off clearly. Sorry. My apologies. Well, first of all, Kim, you are absolutely right to raise it in this forum, because I believe, one, it's your right to do that as our archivist, but also members do need to be aware of what the situation is, because quite clearly this proposed alternative will have serious implications, I think, on our accreditation going forward. But obviously before that, there is the decision to be made by Welsh Government and the TNA. It's in their hands at the moment. When might we expect their comments, observations, and their decision on whether they agree to the changes?
The current status is that questions have been raised to Kier Construction, which the Kier Construction are currently answering. I suppose the decision would be made in the next couple of weeks, because construction is due to start shortly, although one always assumes that modifications, that they cost extra. As we know, modifications are made to designs during once construction's started. But I presume they would like to sort this matter out before they start construction.
And presumably their decision is needed, obviously, before the council can make any kind of decision on this. Might it be possible for if the decision or the advice from Welsh Government and the TNA is such that they do not approve, might a decision still be made to go ahead with this modification?
It's a very good question, actually. It's a shock. I have had that discussion with other officers in the council. One of the things about the grant from Welsh Government is that it should meet the British Standard 4971 with regard to the maintenance of the correct relative humidity and security and other things. However, it's not written into the grant that West Glamorgan must maintain its accreditation. So it's been pointed out, because I said, well, we might not get accreditation if don't do that, and they say, well, that's not part of the grant condition. So the only grant condition is that we meet BS 4971, not that we maintain accreditation.
Right.
However, it has to be said that Swansea Council is very keen on accreditation, both for its archives, its art gallery, its museum. It's a sign of good governance, basically. So I'm not necessarily, although it may not concern the construction, I think Swansea Council regards quite rightly that accreditation is a badge of a facility. And once we've got it, it's not something we want to lose. I mean, our position with regard to accreditation is that we're provisionally accredited at the moment because our accreditation ran out in 2022, 6 years from 2016. So because of the transition, it wasn't really, didn't make sense to go for accreditation when we're going through a move. So it was decided we just maintain provisional status until we were in new premises.
Well, thank you very much for that, Kim, and we hope that the right decision will be made with regards to this modification. Perhaps with all the other suggested changes that you appear to accept are satisfactory and don't compromise the collection. Perhaps in the context of that, going forward with this modification, which is likely to, with the risk of manual intervention and the uncertainties that would bring into it, perhaps that would be a balance which is struck between the need to save some costs, but also to ensure the safety and security of the collection. So we await the outcome of that decision with interest, I'm sure. Thank you.
Lyndon, Chair.
Sorry, Lyndon.
Yeah, I was just going to say, to follow on from what the points that Kim made there, that it's obviously a dangerous road to go down if we're not going to have accreditation. And, you know, it's not a surprise that we were going there. So I'm surprised that we're in this position, because we were told many months ago and years ago that if this couldn't be solved, then there's only one safe place for our archive, and that was probably Cardiff, which I think would be totally unacceptable. So, you know, we've been down this road and talking about it. So I'm a bit surprised that we, you know, we're in this position at the almost in the 24th hour, really. So I'm a bit worried about it. Chair.
Thank you, Lyndon. I'm sure we are worried about it, and yes, I expect that the escalating costs of a building like this is obviously you know, part of the issue, isn't it? They have to save costs, and they are looking for ways in which it can be done. So that was probably unexpected when we were given those assurances. So it's a process that has to be gone through, but hopefully the right outcome will be achieved at the end of it. But your concerns are noted, Lyndon. Thank you.
Moving forward, I'll just mention the feasibility study regarding a possible history centre. The work has been completed, but it's currently awaiting its first the presentation. The process hasn't finished yet. It involves a presentation, and I'm sure in due course that will become available as a document for members to see. I've mentioned about staff. I'm very, very pleased that we've been able to recruit, in the process of recruiting another member of staff, and that we will get back to our full pre-COVID staff level and be able to provide the same opening hours as we had back in March 2020. Prior to that, so that involves lunchtime opening, which will involve, certainly for me, an element of compromise, being back on desk again, no doubt during lunch hours. But I think it's very important in terms of people visiting Swansea that they don't necessarily have to go out for an hour and find something to do and then come back to work through the day. And likewise in Meath, I know that Mrs. Watkins has very, quite powerfully voiced desire to return to a 2-day-a-week opening in Leith, and we're looking at being able to do that shortly. And with the increased family history resource that we have, so hopefully we can get people back in. We need to market it and so on. Then just to finish off, attended, or staff have attended, I think actually they're all ones that I've been to, various professional meetings relating to all Wales and UK-wide professional bodies. Very pleased to say that most professional meetings nowadays take place via Teams, Microsoft Teams, so it doesn't involve any travel at all. So yeah, that's one of the positive things from the pandemic, is that we've all got used to meeting on Teams and not having to travel and spend time traveling to a central destination. Let's mention that we're very grateful to the Neath Antiquarian Society for showing us around the collections. Chris Saunders, Claire and myself and other officers from Talbot, so they could get a greater understanding of the collections and the service we provide. And then we have finally a list of collections, which is in the appendix. For those members who follow Wales Online, you will see that the this paragraph at the end was picked up by Richard Yule of Wales Online, and there was a Wales Online article about macabre discovery in Guildhall basement. It wasn't quite what I expected. He had to have something to make people click on the article, I suppose. But basically, I was very surprised. During August, I was able to start clearing out a room in the basement of the Guildhall. Those are items that will need to be cleaned and packaged and dealt with, because they'll be going to Stova. And to come across a file from the Second World War, which just it stood out as being, what on earth is doing that doing here? So it's very interesting file, and I just mentioned it there, and it was picked up by the press. So I don't know whether it's been. We're also contacted by the Wales News Service, who were going to send it out to other sources. I haven't seen it other than on Wales Online, but it was interesting. Interesting the way it suddenly blew up, and the journalist was saying, "Can I interview you to find out more about this? Can I have pictures from the file and so on?"
Well, hopefully that will stimulate people's interest in the archives, and we could find ourselves really benefiting from a flood of visitors.
Well, Second World War resources, I think, was one of the things that we are very good on. And Andrew, some years ago, a couple of years ago, created an online index of Swansea's civilian war dead, and that's available on the Swansea Council website. And so hopefully we can point people to some of the resources that we've created for the Second World War. And of course, it's always an interesting topic for schools. It's part of the curriculum, and they want the schools want to have these sessions. I think it's probably one of our most popular sessions with schools, the Swansea Blitz.
Thank you, Kim. And certainly the collection of archives, it's fascinating to go through them. Sorry, the collection into the archives.
Yes.
The sessions. It's fascinating to go through them. And I think once again, it just demonstrates the diversity of the collection that you have and what there is out there, and really how important archives is to our to our culture, to our own history, and you know the importance that it holds in the area. So fantastic. Are there any questions or any further observations from anyone? Janice?
I would just like to invite members of the committee to our book launch on the 7th of October if they care to attend. The Lord Lieutenant will be launching our centenary book at Neath Library, 7th of October at 11 o'clock. And you're all very welcome to attend. And Kim is giving a book. And
Yes, yeah, yes.
And having seen an advanced copy of the book, I can say how well. It's a gem, well worth the centenary.
Bargain price at £35.
Bargain. Limited edition.
Yes, 300.
Yes, so buy it while you can. It will be.
They do sell
something
very
to
well.
treasure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope this one. So it's. I've got a photograph here of it coming off the press. So we're on target.
Excellent. Yes, we look forward to that, Janet. Well, if there's no further comments or observations, I'll draw the meeting to a close. Thank you all very much for your attendance and for your contributions. And thank you, Kim, and your staff once again for all your hard work in the archive section. And we know it's a difficult time at the moment, this transition to Eastover. But thank you for your input and for your work that you're doing. So yeah, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please convey our staff our thanks once again to the staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Right.